Hey everyone, in this video we're going to add style component to our React application and start styling it. Before we get into this, I do want to mention that style components is a library that allows us to write CSS in our JavaScript. So it's a CSS and JavaScript solution for styling, which seems to be a divisive topic. Like how to style your front-end application seems to be a divisive topic. So you may not like this, and that's completely fine. I feel like when it comes to CSS, it's less about finding the right way or like the most ideal way. It feels more like finding the the solution that sucks the least, right? So in whatever solution that you like to use, whether that be CSS modules, CSS and JavaScript, or anything else, that's completely up to you. But I do think it's at least worth trying CSS and JavaScript if you haven't done so before. So in this project for myself, I will be using style components, so that's that. The first thing that we're going to do here then would be to add it. Here we are. So we're going to add style components, and if you are interested in why you may want to use CSS and JavaScript, style components documentation has a pretty good summary of the reasoning behind why this may be a solution for you, and I would give it a read. Cool, so I've done that. Let's start. I think this is start for us. Run up our React development server. Okay, there we go. Let's see if it's working. Fantastic. Okay, so first of all, I'll just show you how it works. Let's go with home first. What you need to do is say import styled from style components. And the way that you can start styling things is, for example, if I wanted to make home, this h1 tag go to the middle, say text align center, if that's what I want to do. What I could do, const, you may call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it style h1, style.h1, backticks again, and then inside here you can start writing any CSS. Any CSS should work here. So I can do text align center and use this as a React component, like so, and refresh this. There we go, and it works. So that's very simply, this is how you can use style components to start styling your React application. You're basically creating a React component with styles attached to it. Okay. Now that's a very simple example where we'll look at a few more things that we can do with this as we go. The next thing that I want to briefly talk about is, well, using some UI frameworks and such, because like there's a lot out there for React. I believe Material UI is one of the most popular ones, and there's definitely Ant Design, so on and so forth. There's quite a lot out there. I will not be using any one of those for this project because what I found is that, at least for me, if I try to use any of those frameworks, those UI frameworks, unless I'm actually very familiar with using that framework, unless I know it in and out, I will at some point get in a situation in which I'm actually spending more time fighting against the framework than I am saving through using that framework. So of course, when you first use it and all you need is a very simple button, you use their button component and it's already styled and it has these props that you can use, so on and so forth. It works out really well and it saves you time. But once you start to want to really kind of customize it in your own way, that's when I find it actually takes a lot more time to learn the framework and also kind of takes more time to customize it against the way it's already designed, right? Now, of course, if you're super familiar with a framework already, that's completely fine. But I also found that It's also really good. It's a good learning experience to try to write every single line of CSS code yourself. And it's not that difficult, actually. One way to get started is try to pick a website that you really like in terms of its design and basically just kind of learning from it, copying some of their CSS and learning from their CSS from it. So having that said, for this particular project, I am going to try to base it off of Notion's CSS, their styling. I think it's actually really well styled. Again, I have no affiliation with Notion. I am a fan of their product, and not only that, I do think it's the design language that they have is really simple and concise. And on that topic, on that note, one more thing is if you are not design savvy, just like myself, the safest thing that you can go for is using a lot of white and a bit of black, different shades of black, and pick one accent color and use it sparingly. That's kind of like what Notion is doing here. A whole lot of white, a little bit of black, a little bit of like gray, different shades of gray and different shades of black, and using a single accent color sparingly. And that works, right? I've seen so many projects from students that when you're not a designer yourself, don't try too hard with different colors or designs. Just keep it simple. Just go with what works, and the safest way to go for that is to use, again, I'm repeating myself, white, black, and a single accent color. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. Let's base our design off of this, right? So I'm gonna look at that. First, it seems like, oh, there we go, right away. It seems like they have some sort of a container going on right here. They like right there, and right away it's coming from this main tag. And the way that they're doing that is we can go over here and try to find what what makes it do that. Okay, here we are. Max width 100%, width is 960 pixels, and it's doing margin 0 pixel auto. That way it's actually centering it to the middle. Makes perfect sense. We will do that with that small detail being different. To me, it seems like for me, it's a little more intuitive to have width at 100% and max width at a certain pixel value. I believe it does the same exact thing, and if anyone, if it doesn't, if there's any difference between doing max width at 100% and doing width at a particular pixel value, or the other way around, if there's any difference between them, please let me know. To my understanding, there is no difference, but it's just a little more intuitive for me to think, okay, the width is always going to be 100%, but it can only grow up until a certain pixel value, basically constrained by the max width. This, you have to read it as the max width will be 100% of the its parent, and the width will always try to be 960 pixels. So if the viewport is is less than 960 pixels at any point, it will be smaller than 960 and be max width of 100%. It still makes sense, but it's less intuitive. Anyways, let's implement it right now. So what we're going to do here is say component new, let's just call it main.js, and we're going to import styled from styled components and simply export default styled main and then backticks. Let's say, what was it? Width is going to be 100%, and max width is, where's that? 960. And we also need margin 0 auto, right? It's very, very simple right now. It may change later, right? And as we're doing this, let's also create a layout.js page. In fact, this small of a file may be, not great. I might actually just move this over here and just call this styled main. And I'm going to import React as well. Okay, and then I'm going to export default. It's going to be a function called layout, and it will return, oh, that's not right, main, right? Oh, it will always have children. The intent is to have children passed in, and that's where it's going to be rendered. Okay, so I don't need main. Let's go with this. And the reason why I wanted to do this is because I want to actually grab navbar right away. Do I? Maybe not. Well, we'll keep it as is, like this for now. Do we want to? What does navbar have? Okay, we actually might grab this entire thing and put it inside here as well. Okay, let's do that. We can refactor it later. Things will most likely change, but still. Okay, so let's do div. Right? Why is that? Okay. Let's do some of that. Cool, and we're also going to grab a hold of that. Okay, remove this, save it. Okay, so now we have our layout, and with that, what we can do here is say layout, import that, space in between. Now we don't need to have an arbitrary div here. We can do that instead. Same thing with our users. Do that. Here we are. Layout. Save it. Now I believe at this point we might have two navbars. Yeah, that's correct, because in our nav layout component we have our nav, but we also have in our app.js navbar here. We don't need that anymore. We're gonna remove that. In fact, we can remove the navbar itself. Cool. So that's that. All right. Okay. So if you take a look at, okay, the children here now, let's remove this so that we can see what's happening a little better. So H1 will no longer be centered. Cool. All right. Now you can see that it's being wrapped inside main, and then the main is set its max width to 960 pixels, and it's centered. Cool. That's exactly what I wanted to do. Okay. Now let's also make style our navbar here. Just gonna take a look at how they styled it. Nav. Okay. So one question could be when you're creating a container like this that has a particular width being set for itself, but later on somewhere in the page you might want to have that section span across the full width, right? So something like, I'm pretty sure they would have, yep, that was 1, 2. Here you can see also it spans across the entire width of the browser. Here you can also see that it obviously goes outside of that container right there. Now the way to do this is actually quite simple. You can just use the viewport width unit as your width. So if you look at nav, you'll notice that nav is also inside main, which is contained with a 960 pixel width. But nav spans across the entirety of the width of the browser. The way that works is using VW, so the viewport width. So, all right, that's cool. That's what they're doing. Are they setting a explicit height anywhere? A position fixed makes sense. And okay, yeah, they are. So 54 pixel is the height that they have set, which is pretty cool. Now, and then they have another div inside of it. Why would you do that? I am not entirely sure. There's display flex and a few things, padding. Okay. Inside here, there's going to be a div for the logo and the div for some of the navigation items here and the search or the sign up portions here. Okay. So we're going to do something very similar to this. So let's view width and height of 54 pixels. Now if you go over here, let's try. Width is, I see. It's setting it as 100 viewport width, but inside of it, the width is set to 976 pixels. So, I mean, I'm a little lazy. I can do it later, I guess, but for now, let's do this. All right, layout here. Okay. Styled nav is going to be styled nav. Let's set its width to 100 width, and height is going to be, what was it? 54. Okay, and we can have styled nav inner is going to be a styled div with a width of 960 pixels and margin 0 auto. Okay. The position will be fixed with top 0, left 0, and we will make it display flex, and it's going to make it centered using a line item center. That way we don't even need this. So, okay. Just to make sure that this is working, I'm going to make it gray for 1 second here. Okay, so let's do that, but also wrap it up with inner. Cool. So why is it doing that? Nav is here, and this is, oh, because we haven't set its height to 100%. There we go. And this one fixed. Okay, so line items, is it justify content center? Yeah, there we go. We also need to do justify content center to have it centered. We want this guy to have 100% height. And we don't need that anymore. We know how much that is. But also you'll notice that because we've set this to fixed, this guy, it actually overlaps. So this is 54 pixels. So I probably want my main to have a margin of, at the very least, 54 pixels on top. Okay, let's try that. All right, so there's the nav, there's that div inner, and then we have these guys right here, right? Okay, that's cool. So next thing is, yeah, I might actually pull this out into something else, into a different file after all. So let's say const, we will say styled logo. It's going to be a styled div. Okay. I actually don't need this. Style nav inner. Let's wrap this inside, and then I'm going to say meeting stone. This is the intention here, is that this will be the logo, And then we'll wrap this up inside another div so that we have that structure here. Cool. There we go. Now, if we want to make it go like this instead of this, we do display flex, flex direction. It's by default set to row, but you can be more explicit. And we should say justify content space between. There we go. Okay, that works. Now, we also want to make sure that it's centered vertically as well. So that's where align items, I believe, comes into play. Align items center. There we go. Okay, so we need these guys in here. Cool. Refresh that. Refresh that. All right. All right. We're getting somewhere. Cool. Now, link. Here's one more thing about what you can do with style components. It's not just simple HTML tags that you can use with style components. You can just apply styles to any React component. So say you want to, what's it called? Style this component link, right? You don't have to say wrap it up. I mean, you can. You don't have to do that. Instead, what you can do is grab a hold of that link itself and say, okay, const styled link is styled, and then parentheses link. Do that, and all we're going to do here is set the margin left to 1 rem. Oops, I didn't apply it. Grab a hold of that. Oops. Again, copy that, paste it, paste it, paste it, paste it, save it. All right, now we have that. Also, let's take a look at it. Let's get rid of a few things here. Text, decoration, none. We don't want anything like that. The color also, I don't like what it, like something like 888 333 555. All right, that's decent. All right. Okay, so we do that. Cool. Then it refreshes, looks good, right? And of course we could, so just to show you, right? Let's pick a accent color. What am I gonna do? Let's go with teal-ish looking color. All right, that's fine. Okay, that's completely fine with me. So we could do something along the lines of, just to let you know that everything that you can write in CSS, you can write in style components. So if you want to write CSS for the hover pseudo class, you can easily do so doing that. So we're going to do color that instead. Over here now, when you hover it, yep, there we go, it works, right? Cool. The very last thing that I want to do, users, that works, home, that works, all works as intended. The last thing that I'm going to show you is basically adapting the styles based on prompts. So this is where a part of kind of, it makes it very easy to use JavaScript to make dynamically styled things, right? So when a prompt is a certain value, you can provide it with a different style. When it's a different value, you can provide it with another style as well. So what I mean by that is, say what we want to do is have multiple navigation items, and we basically inform the user where they are at that moment. So basically, if they are at home, somehow this navigation item, maybe we'll do an underline, that could work. And when they're at slash users, there will be an underline over here, right? So let's try to get that working. So what we need to do here first is actually get the data, get that information somehow, somewhere. Now, what you can work with is actually do something like window dot location dot path name. So if you take a look over here, slash slash users, if you go to home, it'll be just slash, right? So this works pretty well at the moment, but it's not the greatest solution. I mean, you're basically calling a global object from your React application, which is never, it always feels a little icky. And also, it works here with create React app, but if you're ever using something that pre-renders your React components and pages into HTML and CSS first, so if you're using anything like Next.js or Gatsby, or even just like pre-rendering your React application with just a library in Create React App, this will not work because the pre-render task will run without the window global object being present, right? So there, of course, there's ways around it as well, but if there's another solution that allows you to not do this in the first place, that would probably be better. In our case, because we're using React Router, there is a solution like that. Now, React Router, this comes with children is needed. Comes with a very useful method called with router. Now, what this does is it's a higher order component in which what you can do here is, instead of exporting that directly, you can export this being wrapped with router. What that does is it just provides you with a few props. So let me see here. So if we didn't do this, and we can do something like props, and if we want to do that, we would have to do this, right? But also console.log props. There's only one prop called children, which makes sense. However, if you were to do, where was I? Oops, okay, let's do this. With router layout. Let's take a look at props now. If you do that, you'll notice that there's a whole lot more, right? So let's actually take a look. Can we actually find our path from this? Oh, something looks pretty good here. Location, and then path name, right? So if I go to users, again, take a look here. Location, path name, fantastic, right? So we go here, instead of passing it that way, let's just go back. Start adding location, right? And we can say console.log location, or let's just do path name actually. Users, boom, 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 boom. Okay. So with this, we can basically pass this into our link, which is our style link, which is coming from here, right? So what we're going to do here is pass this guy. Location is, oh, that's a little too big. Location is location. Or, you know what, path name is location dot path name, right? Let's do that to this guy as well. All right, so if you do that, style components, you can actually use props inside here. The way that you do it is by doing that, and props, and have a arrow function inside. This way you're actually, you're given access to the props that are being passed in, and we're passing in a prop name path name, so this will exist, right? So what we can do here is say, oh, we shouldn't do that. This guy has no idea about where, which path it should correspond to. Style link itself does not have that. I mean, you could do that as well. You could do something like props path name or 2. You could do that. Let's see if we can do it this way. So we can do, let's say, not margin. Border bottom is if the path name that is being or 0. So there's or none. So if the props path name that is being provided here is the same as 2, what is being provided here, then we're going to provide a border bottom of, let's say, about 2 pixels solid, and then same color as this, right? Or if not, there's no border. Save that. There we go. So now we have that guy right there as well. What about we say this is height is 100 pixel percent, right? I don't like that. I can set it to 54. Oh, you can't do that because it is an inline. We have to make it an inline block, and we can set the height forcefully to something or 54 pixel. Which does not look great because you also need to do a vertical line inside here. Why is that doing this? Vertical, is it not vertical line? How did you, where's it? Line height, 54 pixels, yeah, okay, that's a tiny bit better. Still not a big fan of this here. Let's just make this something like 30 pixels. I don't want to waste your time too much with the tedious parts of CSS. But yeah, there we go. Now we actually have styles that are being dynamically applied depending on something like where the user is at right now in terms of the URL. So cool. So that's what you can do with style components, and that's what I will be using for styling the project. In the upcoming videos, I will likely skip the parts of me styling unless I feel like it is quite important to demonstrate something. I will just style things and then only focus on the parts that are more about development, actual, web development. Yeah, so that's it for today. See you later.